By, by now, you should be able to know that tree planting or tree growing is one of the best method in terms of restoration. Certainly is not the only one, but it's one of the effective methods that most of the communities or even governments actually use to restore degraded land. And I'm sure Olabi today will be able to share his own personal experience restoring degraded lands in Nigeria. Yeah, so we thought it's good that we invite Olabi, who is a past alumni of the Land Accelerator, having joined 2022 cohort, right, Olabi? Yeah, and he comes all the way from Nigeria, doing an amazing work. He has been through this journey of the Land Accelerator. And last year, equally, he was lucky to receive the Terra Fund, where he's working with hundreds of communities in Nigeria to plant more trees, but at the same time, to be able to see millions of trees actually get on the ground. So we are certainly happy to have him today. And maybe, Olabi, you can introduce yourself and your company, and then maybe give us a presentation of the work that you do.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and I'm excited to be a part of this peer-to-peer session today. I want to express my gratitude to the WRI team for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I hope that we can have a productive and engaging conversation. Many of us are likely familiar with tree seedling production and tree planting. So I'm going to share with you what we are doing in Nigeria. Our company is Aerobic Agroforestry Limited. We are based in Southwest Nigeria, and we specialize in producing seedlings and planting trees. At the moment, we all know that the challenges all over the world is about climate change, land degradation, and Nigeria is not accepted. Nigeria is one of the worst degraded land in the world. And we approached one of the state governments in Nigeria to allow us to adopt one of the degraded forest reserve located in Akure in Southwest Nigeria. And that is where we are already trying to revive. We have so far planted close to 1 million trees. This year, we have been able to raise about 700,000 seedlings. That will be the first batch that have started going to the field at the moment as I speak with you. So I'm here to share with you how to have a very successful tree nursery, to be able to produce trees, seedlings, and to be able to put those tree seedlings in the field. Just like any other business, I hope you are hearing me clearly.
Yes, yes, yes.
Just like any other business, you must have the necessary infrastructure in place. This includes the elements that create a conducive environment for growth. So when you are talking of seedlings, we talk about infrastructure like nursery or greenhouse, as the case may be. We can use the two interchangeably. Now, what do we mean by good environment? A good environment that allows good flow of air. You are not expected to have a stagnant air in your greenhouse or in your nursery. Otherwise, you are going to suffer some insect or fungus infection. So good airflow is very, very important in your greenhouse. And at the same time, you must have a moderate light level. Good quality greenhouse will allow some sunlight to get in. It must not be too much. It will be moderate. It must not be too bright. Young plants can burn easily from high level of sunlight. Even if you water them regularly, if the sun is too much, they get burned and they can die. And it will not be good for you to have invested so much on buying the seed, planting the seed, and at the end of the day, you allow the sun to burn it off. So the moderate temperature too. The third one is moderate temperature. You must have a temperature that is suitable for the species of trees you are planting. If you are in a very temperate region, you allow the greenhouse room to be warmer than the outside, because seed, when they are young, the seedling, when they are young, they love warm temperature. So then you also guide against predators. In my own farm, I've encountered a lot of rats, rodents, mice disturbing us in the nursery. Sometimes we even saw snakes under the pile of seedling trays. So try to guide against all this because it is necessary. Just like in your own house, you won't like to live or habitate with rats, with snakes. So the same way, those seedlings are in your care, and you must provide all the necessary care for them to be able to grow and produce very well. So you must keep away predators. In some way you can do that is by keeping cats. I have cats in my farm that scare away rats. I also have a dog that probably scare away some rats and snakes too. So you must also provide shade in the greenhouse. You cover the place in a way that it will regulate the amount of light that comes in. If it's too dark, maybe you are going to use a shade net of about 20 to 30% shade cover. If it's too bright, like in Nigeria, we are used to 60% shade net. You can buy that in the market, in any of the agricultural market store. Then the roofing materials you use is also important, and that's what separates the greenhouse from ordinary nursery. Some greenhouse roofing materials come in poly materials that are impermeable. They don't allow rainfall get into the greenhouse. What that means that the water requirements of that greenhouse solely depend on you because water cannot get in. And the advantage is that you'll be able to control the amount of water you want to use, and you'll be able to know whether the soil or the ceilings need more water or they don't need more water. And then this also very, very advantageous in an area like Nigeria, where we have heavy rainfall in maybe some parts of July and August. So when you cover it with impermeable material, it won't allow water to come in. So you'll be able to do that on your own. Then the water won't wash away your seed. It has happened to me in the past. The water was so much that it created a lot of damping up for my seedling. From then, I learned that I need to do something to control. Sometimes I raise the ceiling earlier, and I reduce the numbers of seedlings I want to produce in the months of heavy period of rainfall. Now, the most important aspect now is that you have gotten the house ready. You have gotten the greenhouse ready. You have everything set for yourself. You need to now buy seed. Buy quality seed. Know where you are going to buy the seed. Know the history of the company so that you don't invest in a wrong way. Know the history of the company. Know what they are specialized on. Know the germination percentage of the seed, and know the viability of the seed. These are very important. It is very crazy. It will be crazy for you to buy seed, and at the end of the day, after planting it, you are getting 40% germination. That is very, very bad. I bought seed from Australia, and I've recorded about 99% germination from this company. And that is a good sign that you have gotten a good seed. And when you are buying, don't forget to get the import permit. It's also very, very important because you are bringing something from another country. Chances that it may come with weed seed, chances that it may come with other diseases that can be invasive, that when you bring them to your country, they begin to have the country begin to have issue. A example is that of COVID-19 that spread somewhere and became a major endemic to the country. So we won't want to bring seed that become an issue in your own small locality. So when the seed are available and you have gotten them ready, there's what we call breaking of dormancy. There are seed hormone that inhibits germination. Seed hormone inhibits germination of seed until the seed have a favorable condition, a favorable environment. The seed will not germinate. And what are we talking about when we talk about favorable environment? Do we have water? The air, is it okay? So these are the conditions that will allow your seed to germinate. But for you to break the dormancy, there are several ways. Some seed need to be soaked in cold water overnight. For example, Melena arborea, many of us are familiar with this. They need to be soaked in cold water overnight before you can plant it. Like acacia mangium, a very beautiful trees, you need to soak the seed in hot water for about 60 seconds. After that, you now put in cold water. So every seed has its own ways of breaking the dormancy. Some seed you need just to scratch the surface of the coat of the seed. For example, you want to do cockroach or litorus, you soak it in hot water for a period of time. Some you even use sulfuric acid to break the dormancy. So if you don't break the dormancy, you can plant the seed that you expect to germinate within 4 or 5 days, may take 1 month. And that means you will be spending money to water it, you waste time, you waste energy. So the best bet for you is to study the history, the characteristics of that particular seed to know the type of breaking of dormancy that actually work for it. And some supplier of seed can actually help you out with that. They will tell you, this is how you are going to do it. This is how you are going to break the dormancy. So it is very important you take to adapt to this process. Seedling phase. There are 3 phases of seedling growth. And the first one, I hope I'm not too fast. If I'm too fast, maybe you try to caution me to take it slow.
Let's check with Fabiana. How's the note taking going, Fabiana? Thumbs up. All right. So we will have a lot of these notes available on Restore Forward. So thanks so much for sharing, Adewumi, as well as I'm recording too. So thanks for all of these things to consider. And I did put in the chat box as well, if people would like to share some of their largest problems or obstacles that they've had in either creating seedlings or procuring and using seedlings, that also might launch a discussion later. So as Adewumi is presenting, feel free to put any kinds of thoughts that you might have had over the days and years about, I want to do this better in my nursery, or I'm having problems with these trees, because these kind of technical questions, we've got the pro here. If you can remind us one more time, Adewumi, how many trees are you creating each year?
This year we are doing 1 million trees.
1 million trees. So we've got somebody here who's growing 1 million trees. So even if you think, you had any question at all, even if it seems very, very technical, we have the technical expert here. So back to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So at the stage of telling us about the phases in seedling production or growth. We have the establishment phase, and that is when the seed break from the coat and shoot out the first cotyledon and the fourth true leaf. That is when they are very, very tender. The way you apply water is very important. Don't rush the water too much, otherwise it break the root or break the stem. So you take caution to apply the water gently. Then the second phase is active growth phase. And that is when the tree begin to grow. In case of acacia mangium, the tree that I mentioned earlier, what you first see is small, tiny leaves. And after a while, you begin to see big leaves coming out. And then when they're about 6 to 12 inches tall, you are fine. So maybe think of how you are going to prepare them and transfer them to the feed. Then this third phase is called hardening phase. This hardening phase is when you create an environment. You take the seedlings from the nursery, from the covered area, you take them to the open area. By doing so, you are telling them, begin to get adjusted, begin to get used to natural wind, natural sun, natural water. So you are not more depending on being supplied all you need in the nursery again. Go and have a taste of life. That is the third phase before the seedling are now being moved to the feed. There are serious challenges that you can face when growing your seedlings in the nursery. These threats can come in form of rodent. I mentioned it earlier. How do you do that? I mentioned about cat being a good predator for rodent. You can also have snail and slugs disturbing. They like to eat the leaves of young plants. So you can choose to unpick them or look for another alternative way to reduce the infection of snails in your in your nursery. Then you can talk of damping off. Damping off is when the planting medium is too wet. This allows for fungus to find its ways. It will even suffocate the roots of the seedlings, and from there they can begin to wither off and die. Then we can talk of other ways of raising seedlings. It's by cutting. We call it vegetative propagation. And another way of saying it is cloning. Some plants, they don't have viable seed. Some even don't even produce seed at all. So how do we produce seed or plant or tree that don't have viable seed or that don't produce seed that can be used? So what you do is by cutting the stem or by the leaves of that plant. This is a very technical process that needs a special training so that can be able to do it properly. Maybe if time allows, some other time we find ourselves in this conversation again, we'll be able to discuss more details about to do cloning. You have to have your growth hormone available, and that is what you use when you are, and there's going to be a special kind of environment where you can also do the technical aspects of vegetative propagation. Now we are going to talk about growing media. What do we mean by growing media? A growing medium is the substance you grow.
La croissance, le growing medium, c'est là où vous mettez la graine, c'est là où
to anchor in the soil and develop a strong root system, so it can be grow securely when planting in the field. The growing media you choose will be of herb or depend on the type of pot you are using or the type of tree you want to plant. There are different types of growing media. We have the one of organic one, and we have the inorganic one. For the organic growing media, we can talk of a compost. You must have heard about compost before. These are waste from grain, waste from dead microorganism, from manure, from tree bark, from cocoa peat. Cocoa peat is what I use in my farm, and you can get cocoa peat anywhere. It is very, it's common in countries like India, but we have it in Nigeria. If you're in Nigeria too, you can get it. Cocoa peat or compost, native soil, these are organic media you can use for planting your seed. You can also use inorganic material, but that is expensive and you may not be able to find them in large quantity. We are talking of vermiculite, hydrogel, and other sterile substances. These are very, very expensive. You may not be able to get them in large quantity. Like even poultry shell, you can use it as your growing media. You will use poultry shells as a top to use as a top up for plants so that it will prevent dehydration during sunny or dry season. So it is important you choose the best growing media for your plant. I choose cocoa peat, because it's readily available and it is also free from weed. So when you use cocoa peat, you are not be afraid of having to manage weed after a period of time because it is free of weed. So choose the best one that you think you favor your seedling production. Then we now talk about nutrients, fertilizer. You see, when your seedlings are in the nursery, you are responsible for everything about their life, be it water, be it fertilizer, be it the growing media, whatever they need, you have to provide. Until when they get to the field, that is when then you surrender them to the hand of nature to take care of them. But when they are in your nursery, you have to do everything to make them happy. And one of the fertilizer you can use is using organic fertilizer. It could be foliar, it could be through fertigation, it could be through foliar, just like I mentioned, or even you can even mix it with the growing media that you want to use. So, but when you are producing seedling in very large quantity, the best bet for you is to use what we call synthetic fertilizer, called slow release fertilizer. Slow release fertilizer or control release fertilizer. This is very beautiful. I use it and I buy, but though it is expensive, but I will recommend it for you to use slow release fertilizer when you are, it is not acidic and it is time release. We have the one that can release within 2 weeks. We have the one that can release within a month. We have the one that can release between 6 to even 1 year, depending on the the make of the fertilizer. It is called slow release fertilizer. Very suitable, fantastic product, but it's the disadvantage is that it's expensive and you can hardly find it in the market, except maybe you go to a country like Europe, Israel to get them. Then for your seedling, you have to get pot, the planting pot. That is where you are going to put the growing media before you can put the seed. There are different types of growing media. They have different shape and sizes. The one you want to use depends on the type of seed you want to raise, the year, the duration of raising them. If you want to raise like an acacia mangium, a small pot is very okay for you. But if you want to use seedling like mango, mango or citrus may take like close to a year. That means you have to use a big pot. So we have different shape for pots. We have round pot, we have small pot, we have large pot. So depending on the one you want to use, I use seedling tray in my own farm because it is easy to use, it is easy to manage, it helps us for logistics too. One tray can contain about 100 tree seedlings. So with that, we'll be able to manage your seedling properly. Then now we talk about irrigation. I've mentioned part of the irrigation in the topic earlier, but you need to irrigate and you need to know the amount of water you use. So there are different ways of irrigating your plants. It is either by overhead sprinkler, which I use. The water comes in the form of mist from this up, and it sprinkles the water. And we also regulate the amount of water that comes in. In the beginning, we wet 3 times in a day. And as the tree begins to germinate and grow, we increase the numbers of times that we also irrigate. And also depends on the season too. If it is very, very hot, that means the number of times you are going to irrigate may increase. And it's very, very cold, or maybe it's during the rainy season, you have to just watch and see whether the water is not too much, it's moderate, and it's fine. And the water you are using, check for the EC level. That is electrical conducivities of the water. That is very, very important too. We call it EC. There's what we have called EC meter. You can buy EC meter to know the EC level of your water. Every seedling a specific rate or numbers of EC level. For some, it is below 0. Some it is 1. Some it is 2, depending on the type of seedling you are raising, be it vegetable or trees. So
I need to interrupt you because we are at our 30-minute mark. It happened a little quick. So maybe if you can finish so that our second speaker can share a bit of the news as well.
So with that, take serious hygienic procedure in your nursery. Your nursery is not a zoo where people come and begin to look. So try to be cautious of diseases. So let your environment be very neat and do extra sanitation to make sure that your environment is also very good. Once you are able to do that, also keep record of your plants, or your procedures and what you do. When did you last fertilize? When did you last apply some pesticide? These are records you must keep. And what are the numbers of seedling you planted? What are the numbers that are able to germinate? Always keep record in case of tomorrow, so that you can be able to look back and see how you are able to perform. After the record and after everything has been done, and then your plants are fine and good, you now look for a way to go and transfer them to the feed. That is the most important aspect too. Transplanting the seedling to the feed is very important. Research has shown that some seedling, we lost them in the process of the actual planting. So make sure you do your feed properly in a way that it's not too weedy. Clear the weed, dig the soil, insert the seedlings, cover it with some soil, and then you are fine. And that is the end of the discussion about nursery tree management. And now you can also raise seedling for deforestation project. Thank you for the attention, and thank you for having me.
Thank you too, Dr. Oluwalabi. Perhaps there are a few questions in the chat box. We want to get to them at the end, but if you want to, Dr. Oluwalabi, go ahead and flip through them. You might be able to respond to some of those questions just in writing as well. So people, if we can reserve the chat box just for relevant questions that will help out right now. And let me see, I think then I might want to have Samuel come on and do a nice transition to our second speaker for today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Amanda. Yeah, interesting listening to you, Labi. Certainly I've been able to learn quite a lot. I thought perhaps you just irrigate what kind of water you find on the way for the trees, assuming they are resilient. But now you're bringing in the aspect of even the AC level. Yeah, so I've been able to learn a lot, and hopefully the team here. Yeah, so thank you so much. So we'll certainly transition to the next speaker, who is a forester by profession, sharing with us now, how do you even start to establish a tree nursery itself? Yeah, and be able to actually link with what Dr. Wolabi did actually share with us. So we are going to have George Okwaro, who is our WRI consultant, sharing with us. George, if you are here, maybe you can come on. Good to mention that George has done quite a lot of work in terms of restoration.
Georges a beaucoup travaillé dans le domaine de la restauration.
You are in Kenya, they must know Makueni. It's one of the counties here in Kenya. We were restoring some degraded forest there. George, if you can hear us, maybe you can go next. And sorry, I know you are actually in the field, but feel free to come on board.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samuel and team. And apologies for coming in a bit late. I'm actually in I'm from a place called East Pokot. For those who are in Kenya, I'm from East Pokot, just slightly past Loruk. And we went to do some equity study on how we can scale forest and landscape restoration, Kenyan chapter. And so, I was on the way, and thank you for getting someone to stand in. And I would like to probably pick up from where the colleague Forrester who was presenting. I just found him in the last 5-10 minutes. I hope you are hearing me. Are you?
Yes, we can
Yes, we're
hear
hearing you, and you're sharing your whole entire screen. So you're not sharing a PowerPoint presentation, in case that's what you were trying to do. Mm-hmm. I know it can be tough to
it's
start
easy for
to
me
talk.
that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. If that's what you want, then that's perfect. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that way, is it okay? Is it easy that way? Are you able to see my screen?
We see your screen and it's black, and we're seeing a Zoom screen. So tell us what you want us to see.
Are you able to see nursery management, the slide?
No. So I would probably go to new share and just try again to select the screen you want to share with us.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go to stop share, that's fine. And then try it one more time.
I try one more time.
Yeah, I know. Take your time. I know it can be overwhelming, I think, to feel like you need to speak while you're finding it. So just find it. I did want to highlight your response that you put in the chat box. However, people were talking about, I can't find bamboo seedlings. And you suggested that they reach out to get technical assistance to grow their own bamboo seedlings. So I think that that's something we can touch on a little bit more maybe at the end of your presentation, but I wanted to thank you for your response so far. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So share screen, I'm seeing one option, window, it's supposed to be a window, isn't it?
Well, do you have the PowerPoint presentation open already?
Yes, I have it open. Open.
Just keep looking through there. Maybe there has a more button and it might be on the next screen.
Yeah, okay.
There's a show all windows, and then maybe it might be further down.
Is it? Are you able to see something?
Yep, success. Yep, and if you want to make it full screen by hitting the present icon, then we'll be ready to go. Yep,
like
perfect.
that.
Yep, and we have a small delay, but I'm sure it's coming up.
Is it?
It's still delaying, but
what I can do, I can keep it here.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Here you're able to see it.
It's probably so good enough if you want to hit the PowerPoint presentation one more time, that the present slide, the icon. Because I don't know why it wouldn't work.
This one.
Yeah. It's not doing anything. Yeah, let's just keep going. We tried our best.
Okay, so I'll do like that. If you're able to see now, I can still keep to this one so that we're able to see better.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so now you can see nursery management land
Yep.
accelerator presentation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so just like Samuel said, I've worked with WRI before, and I led their landscape. I was coordinating the landscape work, but professionally a trained forester.
Yes, we can see.
I've worked with the National Kenya Forest Research Institute. I've worked with quite a number of organizations, and I've built a name in this forest or rather restoration field. So I'll take you briefly into nursery management from establishment, and then to be able to augment what my colleague was taking you through. And I think I have about 20 minutes to do that. So I'll start right away and just take you through how I've structured my presentation. We'll go through introduction to nursery management. We'll talk about how to site a nursery. We'll go through layout and key installations, and of course, the general operations. And then I'll take you through record keeping in a nutshell. And then we also look at a highlight of diseases and pests that are common within our nursery establishments. So quickly, a nursery is a place where planting materials such as seedlings, saplings, wildlings, and cuttings are raised, propagated, and multiplied under certain favorable conditions. The reason I'm saying seedlings, saplings, wildlings is because we have different sources of propagation material or material that we can use to plant or establish a plant, a young plant. So seedlings are these that we get from either the seed itself, probably you allow it to germinate and then you start nursing it. So nursery comes from the word nursing. You want to nurse these young ones, and these young ones are seedlings. Saplings are simply small trees that are between around 2 feet to about 1.9, around 1.2 meters in height. They're still thin, they still need care. Wildlings are simply small seedlings that are collected from forests and undergrowth forests. So we have mother trees in the forest, they drop seedlings down, or monkeys will move these seedlings, and then they find enabling environment, they germinate. And so we can collect them and bring and start nursing them from a nursery. One of the reasons why material, some seeds that might not be able to germinate, or they take time, or they're very difficult to germinate from a setup, a home setup. So it's easier to get them when they fall on the ground, then that they're still within a good condition to germinate. When they start growing, we pick them quickly and start nursing them. Some trees, we plant them using cuttings. So we cut cuttings, we probably introduce some growth hormones in the buds, and then when the bud and root, then we start nursing them again from a nursery setup. So that is primarily what we call a nursery. It's a place where planting materials such as seedlings, saplings, wildlings, and cuttings are raised, propagated, and multiplied under favorable conditions. So that being the case, it's good to see how a nursery layout is done. So I've just given you a snapshot of a layout, how a nursery should look like. For those who are in construction, this becomes like the design or a plan of a nursery. So A becomes the shed. Here is A, that's the shed. A nursery must have a shed where people who are working in it can shed in, get under the sun or the rain when they're running normal operations in the nursery. We have a seed growing bed, seed sowing beds. They are primarily sort of beds that are covered with sand to allow water to go through quickly. So you drop in the seeds, and once they germinate, we now move them from these beds into some nursing beds now, or what we call swazi and stuff. We need soil storage because when you're doing potting, when you're transferring these seeds that have just germinated into the pots, they need soil. And so we need special soil that we mix, sometimes forest soil in a certain ratio with sand and or loam soil for you to be able to now fill into the pot. So we need a soil storage facility within this nursery setup. We also need a soil mixing area. Like I just mentioned, we need forest soil and sand and other small types of soil. You mix in a certain ratio that allows for better drainage, aeration, and root development. And E, here is E. E is the seed beds now. The seed beds where now we germinate. We can start now growing these seedlings that have germinated. We have a live fence so that it can stop strong winds and the like. And then we have a store that keeps nursery equipments, including the shovels, wheelbarrows, sprinklers, and the likes. It's important also to have an establishment we're calling a pit latrine. That really helps because you're spending a whole day here. You need somewhere to ease yourself. But most importantly, we must have a water tank. So I is a water tank. Here is where you have a water tank. And then we have H here as a pit latrine. We have E here as seed beds. We have a C here as a soil storage. We have the soil mixing area. We have a shed. We have sowing beds. And then we have G as the store. Quickly, we now move into now, say we have our design, we have all our equipment on the ground. Now we want to take a deep dive into nursery operations. These are daily happenings that happen in the nursery to be able to develop or produce planting materials. So one, we have siting of a nursery. We've just talked about. We have seed sowing bed, we have nursery soil, we have potting, we have pricking out of seedlings, we have shading, tending of seedlings, it's watering, weeding, and root pruning. So siting a nursery, we've talked about it. You need to find a nursery, a place where it's not on a slope, it's probably a flat area with the good wind breaks, with a good shade, easily accessible by road, because you're bringing in your material like on a how do you call this? You bring a material on maybe a hand pull cart or even a tractor and the likes, or a donkey driven cart. And so it needs to be easily accessible for operations, bringing seedlings, taking out seedlings and stuff. We need good seed sowing beds. I'll give you an illustration of a seed sowing bed. I said it's just a bed that primarily we use sand, because sand allows for good drainage. And then we put in seedlings that are probably at most up to 5 millimeters in diameter. And then once they get into contact with the water, and of course we have oxygen, then they germinate. Once they've germinated, they produce the first leaves. We now pluck them off and now transfer them into now what you call a seed bed. There's a seed sowing bed and a seed bed. A seed bed is where now these that have germinated can now be given time to probably move to about 3-4 days, get the second leaf, and then we now transfer them into potting boards, potting bags now rather. Of course, nursery soil is where I said we need forest soil because it's rich in humus and other nutrients. We mix it with some sand so that we can create that sort of environment where we've improved the drainage. Fruits can easily penetrate and germinate. So we get a media ratio that is good. Most times we say 2-to-1. So say if you have 2 spoons of forest soil, then you have 1 spoon of sand, fine sand for that matter, so that sand is good in drainage, rather it's well drained, so it just improves the drainage of this. And then we need also to I need to mention now that this nursery soil, we always want to sieve it. We collect this soil from the forest, we bring it now to the nursery site. We have to sieve it. When we're sieving out, we're removing hard particles, we're also removing probably worms and other material that has not been able to biodegrade. I mean, rather it has not decomposed well, so we remove it, because if decomposition continues into these seedlings, then gases are produced, or rather other chemicals are produced that might also kill the young seedlings. So potting is the act of now filling soil rather, this well mixed soil into the pots so that we can now plug in the seedlings that have just germinated. Then you have what we call pricking out of seedlings. So pricking out now is when now you remove these seedlings from the seed bed, and then you transfer them into the potting bags with soil. Shading is where now we have to provide shade for these new seedlings because they're still young, they need to be tended to. So this shade now allows them to grow under controlled temperatures. We now have, initially we used to use leaves, but now we also use actually sort of, there are sheets that we buy. They allow sun to pass through, probably sometimes 25%, 45%, 60%, 70%. And so that has made life a bit easy for present nursery practitioners. Then we'll do tending of these seedlings. Tending includes we are watering them mostly want to water them in the evening and in the morning, but we encourage people to water in the evening because now there is a long time for these seedlings to use this water. Sometimes if you water in the morning, then the soil can crack when the sun gets up, and so when it cracks, it cuts off the roots of these seedlings, and sometimes they die. So we prefer to water them in the evening so that they have a longer period of time of utilizing this water. We do weeding, this spot weeding. We remove seedling weeds with our hands and ensure that that is within the seed beds or the seedling beds. And then we also do this around the nursery so that we ensure that we don't have weeds. Sometimes weeds can harbor disease-causing microorganisms, pathogens, pests, and stuff. So we need to keep it clean so that we are able now to control, rather hygienically, we are able to ensure that what we're doing, I mean, we don't have great room for rather situations where pests can hibernate and hide and then eventually attack our seedlings. Root pruning, I'll demonstrate how it's done, but simply trying to ensure that our taproots of these seedlings do not grow into the ground, because if that happens, then it becomes difficult to get them off for selling, and then they establish themselves, and when you're transferring them, sometimes they fail to germinate well. Quickly, I want to talk about now seed sowing. Just this a pictorial sort of example of seed sowing. So like I said, this is a seed bed. We have sand, and then we put in those the seed themselves in a good spacing. Mostly we like doing 5 centimeters to 5 centimeters, depending on the diameter of the seed itself. And so when they germinate, like you see here, those are the first leaves. When the second leaf comes out, now we prick it out using a dipler. And then we transfer them into what we call pot or potting bag. Next is now the seedling bed, what I'm calling the seedling bed or the Swazi bed. When the seedlings germinate, we transfer them here quickly so that they can start rooting. And this depends. If, for example, Croton megalocarpus has got a slightly bigger seed, we don't transfer it directly here. We move from the seed sowing bed. From here, we take it direct to the pots. But there are some that they still need, they're still, rather, their leaves are still thin, very small in just size. We now put them here so that we can continue nurturing them here. So this one is always 10 meters and 1 meter in width. 1 meter allows you to stand one side and be able to pull out weeds up to the middle, and then you can transfer the other side again, still be able to provide, you pull out weeds, and if any alien things, you remove, and then you water easily. And then the length is always 10 meters, because at least from there we allow for movement to the next sort of seedling bed. Having said that, potting, I have a pictorial representation of potting. I said a big tree provides shade. We have empty pots. So those pots now fill them with soil. As I say, this soil is just a mixture of forest soil that has been filtered through nicely, and sand, so that it allows for easy drainage and aeration for the seedlings that you're going to plant into this pot. So the process is called potting. So pricking out is now when you remove the seedling that has just germinated, you are now to transfer it into the pot. So there are two pictorials, A and B. It's wrong if you pull it like the way A is demonstrated, then you kill that seedling. You need to hold at the stem. If you hold at the leaves, like I said, they're tender, they're young, they'll all fall off, and then you lose out on that seedling. So you pull at the stem level so that you're able to remove the roots in a manner that is good. And then having done that, now you now transfer them into the pots now. This drips the potting process now. A and B. B is not good. If you do it at B and then you strangle this seedling, the rolling with root pruning, we've not given it enough time to establish itself. For example, in B, when you're doing watering, it takes longer for this water to get to the roots, and that interferes with the growth of the seedling. But the first part is not very good, because again, you're exposing the seedling so much to the ground. If we have like pathogens like worm, they can easily cut it off. But then when you put this root slightly in the middle, and then it becomes easy for the seedling to grow quickly. But it's aerated, it gets access to nutrients, then it gets water, and that becomes a bit easy for it to grow. Shading, talked about shading. Like I said, initially we used to use just dry leaves or grass to just shade that seedling bed. But then nowadays we have now shade polythenes, 25%, 50%, even 75%. So this is a traditional way of doing it, but it depends again how resourced you are. If you don't have much resources to buy these industrially produced shading papers, you can simply use grass, like demonstrated in this picture. And then root pruning, I said I mentioned about root pruning. There is one use a pruning knife. You cut the roots depending on where you had stored your seedling or your potted seedling. But when it's in a seedling bed, like the right side of my screen, you can do either lateral or lateral at y-axis, lateral at x-axis. So use a string, a sharp string. So one person holds the other side, other person holds the other side. Then you push it across the surface of the seedling bed. So it cuts all roots that were trying to find their way to the ground. And by so doing, then now you deny them an opportunity to establish themselves quickly and become making it difficult for you to transfer them from here to transplanting and stuff. So that's how we do using a root pruning or a string. And on the left side is when you use a pruning knife. Yes, I have 8 more minutes, but I'm running through. So quickly, I want to talk about diseases and pests. We have quite a number of diseases, but I just mentioned the most common ones. We have dumping off, fungi, rhizoctonia. We have wilt, we have leaf spots, we have aphids that affect, like in the picture, what we have is aphids. We have termites also. We have leaf miner, we have mites, etc. These are common pests that and diseases that affect our nurseries, our seedlings in nurseries. So like dumping off, fungi, rhizoctonia, and wilt, leaf spot, these are diseases. But then we have aphids, termites, leaf miner, and mites as examples of pests that affect our seedlings in the nursery. And then finally, like my colleague mentioned, you need to keep records. It's important to keep nursery records because from there you're able to know how much money you're spending, how much you've sort of made. You're able to know in terms of the seedlings, the seeds that you bought, the seedlings you've raised, the seedlings that you've sold out or removed from the operation unit. Basically, you need daily operations. You need potting, you need species that you planted. What have you been able to prick out, the amount, the cash flows that you engaged, how have you paid them, and such like things. These are daily sort of recordings that you need to keep. We also have a record book that keeps what like comes in, what goes out, production versus sales, etc. etc. It's important to keep this because it keeps you on check in terms of your expenditures and your income, and also generally operations, so that you know, for example, this side of seedlings has been pruned, this ones have not been pruned. This is the date you prune. You need to go back and prune the next cycle, probably after 3 weeks. So that is important for you to just ensure that you're on top of things in management of your nursery. I also thought it's good to share some further readings, useful readings that can help you probably build up on this and get in-depth understanding of these things, because I've just given you a summary of what really happens. So we have www.nurserymanagement.com is a website that provides you more details of these operations. We have homesteadandchill.com, takes you through how you can control some of these pests, including aphid. So on and so forth. I will not want to get so much into that. This is available. You can click on and be able still to manage them at farm level. I want to welcome questions. So I'll stop sharing here.
First of all, I want to say that's amazing, and I want Samuel to have his own. We have a lot of questions in the chat box, but my particular favorite one was the pests that you had at the end. Oh, it's when they come, it's so frustrating. What are your top, I don't know, recommendations when people see, I don't know, wilt going on, or like, what do you think people need to do when they see pests? What's something that you recommend to people immediately?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. And apologies, I'm actually responding to this call in a cafe, food cafe. So when you hear noise, just understand. I was trying to move quickly and participate in this process. So when you see pests in your farm, I said number one thing, we need to keep our nurseries clean. You need to ensure we don't have weeds, because these weeds will be anchor for potential pests. For example, if we have armyworms, they'll fall when they've attacked your nursery. They must come through. Probably they've seen it's a leafy, it's not attended to. So these weeds sort of become an anchor to this pest. Then from there, now the pests now find their way into our nursery. So first thing we need to do is keep our nurseries as clean as possible, remove all the weeds and stuff. And then if now come in, I like promoting use of organic materials. So first of all, I would prefer using ash. When you place ash on this, for example, the aphids, and I said we have aphids as potential pests. we also have things like the termites and stuff. If you put ash on them, many of them will run away. If they don't die, they'll run away. But if they persist, then you now need to probably look for a chemical. We have chemicals that can help into rather killing this pest, some of them. Some chemicals also help us in eradicating fungal related sort of infections on plants. So first thing, ensure that your nursery is very clean, material as possible. In other situations, we've used actually, we've made a paste from pepper. This is a very hot chili, rather. Chili, you make a paste out of it, then you spray. It also helps very much. Any other question again?
I'd like to pass the microphone to maybe either Fabiana or Samuel, who might have been seeing a few more questions in the chat box. But we can go there as well. Besides the fact that everybody wants your slides. So I don't remember if you've sent us the slides already, George, or if you can just press send and send it to me, Samuel or Fabiana right after the call. That would be great.
I will do that.
We have a question about vertical nurseries. Are vertical nurseries something feasible so that they can make space of limited land?
Yes, I've seen a vertical nursery. This is very interesting. Yes, we must accept one thing, that we are living in the times when land is increasingly becoming scarce, and we want to be very innovative to ensure that we use the least space that we have in making the best out of it. So vertical nurseries is an upcoming way of producing planting material, and it depends in your space and where you are, and you have to look into things like drainage and stuff, but it's something that's practical. I can share additional information on this when I'm sharing this slide, so don't worry, I'll plug in some information around that and probably use some pictorials for your reference.
Wow, so we're getting bonus content. Amazing.
I see a question in the chat about transportation of seedlings and hardening off, and maybe this is something that both George and Olavi can speak to. What happens once the seedlings are ready? How do you transport them? How do you get them out into the world?
So number one, when seedlings are ready, and these are two things happen here. Depending on where you're going to plant, we say seedlings might be ready when they're at least 2 feet tall, because now it means the chance of them surviving in the where they're transplanted is very high. They easily sort of adjust to. And like my colleague mentioned before, we do what is called hardening off. Hardening off allows you to expose them in a timely manner to sun, and sometimes you reduce your watering regime so that they sort of start getting used to tough conditions that they meet in the wherever you want to transfer them to. So now you package them nicely, load them carefully on a cart or a truck that you're using, load them in a slanting manner so that they pile on each other in a slanting way, so that pressure is not put on the stem. So that way now you can offload them in a similar way nicely, and you transplant them. And of course, when you're transplanting, when you're applying them, you remove the pot material so that it goes deep into the ground, and always make sure that you leave at least 5 centimeters of this hole so that you can keep water. Because I mean, we all understand that rain is not very good with us nowadays. So we need, when it rains, at least the pit can keep some water for root further establishment. I've seen a question around saddlewood seedlings. I wish I would had time. I would have talked about that, but I can put it in writing. What else? Any other question that I'm missing? Please just let me know so that.
It is noon, but I think we could stay on for 2 or 3 more minutes.
No.
Yeah, I've seen one by Yvonne on pruning the taproot. Does it kill the plant? Yeah.
Yeah, no. It doesn't kill the plant. Actually, the reason why we are root pruning, we are taproot pruning, is because when you allow it to establish on the ground, then the next time you want to transplant this seedling, it will be difficult for you to cut that root. And then when you cut it, when it has grown, it risks the plant from dying. So we encourage root pruning probably 3 weeks into, actually 1 month, when we've now put these seedlings, when we potted them and put them in the seedling beds. So you need to do this periodically. You need this root pruning periodically using the rope, so that it doesn't establish, because we now want to encourage the fibrous root to germinate, and then only allow the taproot to grow when you've transplanted them in the field. So if you do it in a right manner early in the stages, then it will not affect the plant. But if you wait for the plant to grow to maybe 1 meter, then that becomes complicated. Because remember, this is occupying space that you don't want it to occupy. You want this seedling bed, you want to transfer others there. So if you allow it to establish itself there, it becomes difficult for you to move it, and it will be a loss to you because you've spent money to raise this seed from the sowing bed into a prick, into a sort of a dupling. You've now transferred it into a pot and stuff. It's all expense and time. So we need to ensure that we don't get these situations where it has outgrown and you have to prune it, then it dies. So I've seen a question on vegetative seedling propagation. Does it require a greenhouse or is that cheap? Yes, you can do it from a greenhouse. The idea of the greenhouse is just to enabling environment, unique, where you control temperature, you control humidity and stuff for them to just start growing. And once they start growing, you now transfer them into the nursing or the seedling beds. For example, we do bamboo. We do so much of bamboo in a greenhouse. And once it starts growing, then you transfer it into the nursing seedlings bed. We nurse them from there. But it's a bit expensive, even though we try nowadays to really try to minimize by trying to mimic a condition using the shading, what we're calling the shading material, like the industrially produced polythanes, just to keep it dead, probably allow more heat, because like bamboo, most of the varieties we have, like the giant bamboo from Asia, most of those countries are a bit high, temperatures are higher, so we try to use our greenhouses to maintain that temperature, and then once they germinate, now we transfer them into the nursing seedling nursing beds. How work on the issue of increasing survival rate of the tree planted to avoid high mortality as they are transferred to new environment? We need to work on hardening off. This is from Philemon Yegon. We need to harden these ceilings nicely, adequately. And when we are planting them, also, like say, you remove the polythene, the potting material, remove it. And then once you plant, make sure the topsoil goes a different side, the subsoil goes a different side. So when you're planting, you put into the pot first the topsoil, then the seedling, and then you fill it halfway. Once you fill it halfway, like I said, will allow it to hold water when it rains. This water will help in quick root establishment. And then once that is done, then the seedling can now be able to start moving. Any other question? Samuel, Amanda?
Samuel, I think that I might want to ask you to have this one closed up and invite people to join us in Restore Forward. And if you don't have it yet, it is a separate group for Thursdays. The link is in the calendar invitation. So if you use the calendar a program, or if you've gotten the email that I sent today, you'll find a link to it, I believe, in the calendar or in my email I sent today. So passing it to Samuel.
Thanks so much, Amanda. Yeah, and thanks so much, George. Despite you being in the field, certainly you've been able to make it. So we really want to appreciate for the session. Yeah, it's an eye opener, and we can't wait to actually go through those slides, even as we do practical aspect in the field. So thank you so much, George. Thanks so much, Dr. Wolabi, for sharing your own real experience. Indeed, great to hear that you have been able to do more than 1 million trees. Those are so many trees, but yeah, certainly you're an inspiration. I know many people here would like to do their own tree nurseries. I've interacted with a couple who are doing mango farming, guys who are actually doing macadamia and other tree-based value chain. And certainly these sessions, it must be very helpful to them. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation and everybody for joining. I would be curious to hear what is your experience in the tree nursery management? Yeah, so let's use the Restore Forward to chat. I'll be looking at it, and perhaps next week we should be able to give a report on how that went. Otherwise, thank you so much. We see each other next week on Tuesday.
Yes, and Tuesday, we'll send out an email with a specific link because we're inviting a few more people to join us. We're inviting all the Land Accelerator alumni to join us for that conversation on carbon. So we'll see you, we'll send out, we've sent the link in the calendar invite already this morning, but we'll send you a reminder before the event so that you're sure to click on the correct link, and we'll put it in WhatsApp as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.